I'm on the second review set of your second geometry packet. And again, there will be a review set sometime this week. I'm not going to go through every single question, so they're here for you if you want to look at them. Number one, you just solve like you would an equal sign. Number two, you solve each one separately, and you have the word or in the middle. Number three, this is an and, because it doesn't say the word or. And what you do is you try to get x by itself in the middle of your two signs. So to get x by itself, I would divide everything by 5, and that would leave me with this. And this is my final answer because x in the middle is completely by itself. And the last one, it just says identify the slope, which would be 2/1, and the y-intercept would be -1. So email me if you have any questions about the review set, but this is what your next review set quiz will be over. Then on the next page, the top here is reviewing the distance formula, which we did 2 days ago. And I'm going to write it out here again just so we have it. I'm going to do one together real quick just so we can review. Find the distance between these 2 points. Remember, take the time to label x1, y1 and x2, y2. And when you plug it in, it starts off with x2, which is 7, minus from the formula, x1, which is -4. And remember, you have to be careful with that. You got to make sure you put minus from the formula first, and then you put -4. Then it's y2, which is -2, minus from the formula y1, which is -5. Now, these two negatives make a positive. So this is going to become 7 plus 4, which is 11, and 11 squared is 121. And this is going to become -2 plus 5, which is 3. 3 squared is 9. Now, this is still under the square root. Remember, you have to do parentheses first and then square. So then, 121 plus 9 is 130. But you still have to take the square root of that. And we're just going to round it to the nearest tenth, which is 11.4. So that's the distance between those 2 points. So that's what we did a few days ago. Now, the second formula we're going to go over, which is basically what the packet's about, is just the distance formula and the midpoint formula. Again, both are used a lot in geometry. The midpoint formula is this. Well, it says midpoint, so it's in the form of a point. And basically you take your x's, divide them by 2, and add your y's together and divide it by 2. That's the midpoint formula. Basically what you're doing, like down here in this example, it says find the midpoint of this line segment. It's the point that is directly in the middle of these two. So your answer is going to be in the form of a point, because again, it wants to know what point is directly in the middle of these 2 points. And you can use this formula to figure that out. It's kind of like a quick way. So I'm going to label x1, y1, x2, y2. And when I plug that in, again, it gets plugged in the form of a point with parentheses and my comma. It's x1 plus x2, so that would be -3 plus 0, and then divided by 2. And then it's y1 plus y2, which is 3 plus -7, divided by 2. Now, don't just put this whole thing in your calculator. Take it one step at a time. -3 plus 0 is -3, and it's still divided by 2. 3 plus -7 is -4, and that's divided by 2. Now we just check to see if we can simplify. -3/2, I mean, if you want to put it as a decimal, you can, or you can keep it as a fraction, but that doesn't reduce. Negative 4 over 2 reduces to negative 2. So that's your final answer. That is the point that is directly in the middle between these two. And again, your answer has to be in the form of a point. All right, I'm going to do number 2. So I have x1, y1, x2, y2. And I'm going to plug it in to the formula. Add my x's together. That'd be 9 plus negative 8 divided by 2. And then add my y's together, which is 7 plus 10 divided by 2. 9 plus negative 8 is 1. And 7 plus 10 is 17. And they're both divided by 2. These don't reduce, so you can either leave your answer like that, or if you put them as decimals, that's fine. Either one will work. But that's basically how you use the midpoint formula. I think this one's easier than the distance, less work. But again, it's basically finding what point is directly in the middle of the 2 points they give you. Now, I'm going to go to the next page and do this example with you because I know it's going to be on your test. So this is, it wants you to find the other endpoint when they give you the answer. They give you the midpoint. So you're going to work backwards a little bit. So I'm going to write out the midpoint formula up here again. This is what we just went over. Okay. M stands for midpoint. They give us that. So for M, I'm going to put negative 6, 2. And then all they give me is x1, y1. I don't have the x2, y2. That's what I'm trying to find. So x1 is negative 9 plus x2. I don't have that, so I'm going to leave it as x2 and then over 2. y1 is negative 2 plus y2, which is what I'm missing. So I'm going to keep that as y2 all over 2. So this is what it would look like if you plug it into the formula. Now, let's see. You have to figure out what goes here so that when you simplify this, you get negative 6. And you got to figure out what goes here so when you simplify this, you can get 2. Now you can kind of just do trial and error if you want and just plug in numbers and see what works until you get these. Or what I would do is I would take the x's and the y's separately. So my x's, it says negative 9 plus x2 over 2 equals, this x has to equal negative 6. That's my x value in the midpoint. So if I want to solve this, I'm going to start by timesing 2 on both sides because 2 is being divided. The opposite would be multiplication. So I have negative 9 plus x squared, or not x squared, x2 equals negative 12, because negative 6 times 2 is negative 12. Then add 9 to both sides, and that gives you negative 3. That means negative 3 goes here. Negative 9 plus negative 3 is negative 12. Divide that by 2, you get negative 6. So that's one of my missing values. Now I got to find the y. So I'm just going to work down here so I have space. I'm going to take what the y says, which is negative 2 plus that y2 over 2 equals the y value I want is 2. Now I'm going to solve this and solve for that y. So start by timesing 2 on both sides to get it out of the denominator. And you'll be left with that. Then to get y by itself, I got to add 2 to both sides. And that'll give you 6. So y2 is 6. So negative 2 plus 6 is 4. 4 divided by 2 is 2, which is what I want. So find the other endpoint. The other endpoint is negative 3, 6. So for that one, we had to kind of work backwards and figure out what the other endpoint was, so they got this midpoint for the answer. All right, I'm going to do the next one. Same thing, they give us the midpoint, so my formula is going to equal negative 4, 10. And then I'm going to plug this into the formula. But again, all they give me is x1 and y1. I don't have x2 and y2. That's what I'm trying to find. So x1 is 1 plus x2, which I don't know. Then y1 is negative 9 plus y2, which is what I'm trying to find, over 2. Again, you can kind of sit here and try to figure out 1 plus what divided by 2 will give me negative 4. And negative 9 plus what divided by 2 will give me 10. If you can do it that way, that's absolutely fine. Just some people are hard, like that's difficult for them. So to set up an equation, I'm going to start with what my x value is. 1 plus x squared, or not x squared, x2, sorry, I keep saying that, equals, my x's are having to equal negative 4, because that's my x value in my midpoint. So if I want to solve this, start by timesing 2. So 1 plus x2 equals negative 8. Subtract 1 on both sides to get that x by itself, and you get negative 9. So there's the missing value there. And let's check it. 1 plus negative 9 is negative 8. Divided by 2 is negative 4, which is what I want. Now I'm going to do the y's. So I'm going to take the y's, which is negative 9 plus y2 all over 2. And the y values have to equal 10, because that's the y value in my midpoint. So to solve this, times 2 on both sides. So I have negative 9 plus y2 equals 20. Add 9. And I get y2 equals 29. So there's my missing value here. And again, if I check that, negative 9 plus 29 is 20. 20 divided by 2 is 10. So what is the other endpoint? That would be negative 9, 29. So basically that's all you'll be doing with midpoint. The questions will either have you just find the midpoint in general. They give you the 2 endpoints and you solve it and find the point that's in the middle. Or you have to work backwards where they give you the midpoint and you got to find the other endpoint, which involves a little bit more work.